What is up, everyone? So I had this idea quite some time ago of being able to have a website that a technician could sign into, and a small piece of hardware that you could leave at a customer site and gain access to whenever you needed to be able to like run network diagnostics or figure out what's going on a particular client's site. I thought of the idea of calling it like TekNaBox, which basically you could just send this box out. It could be plugged into a network. It could even be powered with PoE, or you could install it on whatever hardware you wanted to. But I really didn't have the resources to build this. So when Claude and vibe coding became a thing, I thought, hey, maybe I can try my hand at least creating like a proof of concept that maybe I can later on take to a real developer. But the more that I did with vibe coding, the more that I was able to build without any sort of developer assistance, which is totally crazy. But I wanted to take some time to show you the project, and I am going to make it open source. So if you want to run it, you're welcome to. It comes with a couple of disclaimers. I do not profess to be a developer. So if there is any security issues with this, any stability, anything at all, it is 100% up to you to make sure that, that is understood. And if there's extra security precautions you need to place around it, that is your responsibility. Also, I will basically be doing any sort of support through GitHub. So if you do have a question or an issue, put it there. I'll see if I can address it. Otherwise, it's going to be, the support is like anything with open source, is community driven. So enough of me talking. I want to take some time to show you the idea that I came up with. So when I was at my MSP, a lot of the times we would have to send out people that are, tier 1 to on-site, because the people with more experience needed to stay at the office so that they could juggle multiple things. So if we sent somebody that was a higher tier out to a location, just meant that they couldn't focus on other things. There was a lot of driving back and forth. So I said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could have like a device like a Raspberry Pi, like this one right here, that you could essentially just plug into a network, and it would use PoE or whatever else that you wanted to use. And you could just leave it there because it was inexpensive, and you could just sign in whenever you needed to. You didn't have to call in and say, hey, so-and-so, I need to use your computer for a little while. So that's where I came up with TekNaBox. And I want to show you kind of, this is already configured and I've done a couple of scans, but I wanted to show you what it looked like. So let me see here. First, I'm going to fire up, I'm using just a virtual machine to run my agent, but I'm going to fire that up right now, just so we have something to play with. And I'm also going to start up a virtual Windows machine, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Okay, so got those firing up now. You can see I'm booting a couple of virtual machines up right here. I got this just Debian Linux machine booting up, which we're going to pretend that is our Raspberry Pi. And the computer we have right here, this Windows machine, we're also going to use, and I'll show you that in just a second. So at the main screen, we have our sign in. So I'm going to just pop in my username, which I am going to be Bob at Bob's MSP, and my password. All right, so we have two modes. We have light mode and dark mode. Don't prepare yourself for blinding whiteness, but here you go. Here's light mode, sometimes easier to see for people. And then we have our dark mode, obviously. Moving down the list, I'm going to cover most of the platform, but if you have any questions, you're always welcome to leave them down below. We have our devices here, which are essentially our agents, and they will install on anything that's Linux based. I'm not going to ever really support Windows. I think that crosses the line and more into an RMM, and I'm not really trying to do patch management. So if we do have a new device, very easy to set up. We come in here, we type in the device name, and we hit we select our site, and then we hit our diagnostic, or a role. Is it diagnostic? Is it prospecting? Is it pen testing? Right now, the diagnostic is really the only one that really does something. In the future, the pen testing and the prospecting will be a little bit more defined, but right now it's not so much. So we hit create device, and it gives us everything that we need. We have our enrollment code here, and it also gives us a full command line of what we need to run on our Linux machine. And this installation script is designed to be you just run this one command and it downloads everything onto the agent machine, any requirements, any enrollment, any setting up of the program. It does all that for you. So it really is just a single command that you run on your computer to get that all set up. It'll enter a pending state once you've configured that, but once you have joined a machine, it'll enter an active state. And hopefully you're able to see everything okay, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit into different parts. Once we do have something set up, we do have a couple of options. We can always terminal into it, which is really cool. So we can come in here and we can type in whatever we want to. We can actually control that machine. We have bandwidth that controls monitoring of the network traffic. We have different reports, findings. Those are security findings, SNMP, wireless as well. We can do a wireless survey, and we can also do an AD report, which I'll show you here in a second. Let me move down to our tasks. These are the specific tasks that you can run on this machine. We have different categories. We have system information. That's information about the computer. We do a speed test to see how the speed's going. We have network discovery, which includes all these different things. We'll zoom out a little bit, but we got our ping sweep, and here, let me zoom in. Ping sweep, ARP, NetBIOS, port scanning. It uses Nmap on the agent, so we can pretty much do anything that Nmap can do. Diagnostics, we can do trace routing, packet capturing, monitoring DNS lookups. SNMP, we can query some of that too. We also have a couple of different security options. Clear text services. We got email breach check if you have have I been pwned API. We have security audits vulnerability, which I'll show you that in a second. Default credentials, so this will do a scan for default credentials, and any of these you can click on and they'll come up and just basically ask you for an IP address. One that I'm really super happy about is the Windows agent list probe. So we can probe Windows machines and gather information about that without even having an agent on it. And I'll show you that here in a second too. And then we have Active Directory, which includes our AD discovery and our AD recon. There's a lot to this software. I was like, everything I've ever thought of, I was just like, throw it in there, see if it sticks. One of the things I'm super proud of is the AD report. So I thought this more on line of prospecting. So say, we have this computer, we bring it in, we plug it in, the technician's on the other end. He said, all right, I'm ready to find out about this customer's environment while the salesperson talks the sales stuff. We click on AD report and we can do a discovery. So this will do a scan of the entire IP address range if you wanted to, or we can do something more specific and more targeted. I know my Active Directory is setting up on .20, so I'm going to hit start discovery. And what it's going to do, something really cool. So it's going to pull this information in. So it says that this domain was detected, likely domain controllers are this. And if we had done an entire network scan, it would have found all of them. And now we have to do is enter credentials. I know that that's kind of like not easy to see. I'm juggling between light mode and dark mode, and that's just one of the things we need to fix, but probably fixed pretty quickly. So if we hit credentials, let's go ahead and it fills out all the stuff for us. We can do administrator, and I'm just going to type in my administrative password, and we hit full rescan scan. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So it's running that right now. So when it's done, it's going to give us all this information that's detected from doing that AD scan. So we're finding out about the Windows server, the domains, if there's any sort of like bad configurations that are existing on the server. We can also categorize that by different severities. We can go down to infrastructure. This is neat. So we can pull up, how many domain controllers are on the site, how many trusts are established, DNS zones that are in there. DHCP scope has not worked. So still kind of working on that. It might be one of those things we just can't pull. And we have OUs. We can also pull a computer list. So if there's any computers that are joined up, this was just a domain controller, nothing there. Any users. So we can view all the users that are configured, as well as some of their flags. Groups. So if there's any groups that are existing out there. GPOs. So these group policies will essentially pull the names. We're not going to get detail out of them. From what I understand, it's just not something that Windows sends out. But if I am wrong, please let me know and I will continue to dive into it. Password policies, if there's anything crazy going on here. We have minimum length, complexity required, and nothing else really defined. Again, this is just a basic domain controller spun up with no policies really added. Any sort of delegation, Kerberos, shares that are out there, any sort of file shares, as well as security, which kind of takes us back to that main screen. Is lapse configured at all? So definitely really cool. Moving on, go under tasks on the left. This will show everything that we have done so far. So if there's anything that you're, wondering what, scan has been completed or whatnot, it'll show it up here. It's kind of like our audit log, or well, not really our audit log, our audit logs down here. This is just the tasks the things that we've already done as far as the agent is concerned. Moving down to monitoring. This is very cool. This basically, you can add a monitor here and you select your device and you select the type of monitoring, whether it's a ping, checking to see if a website's up, particular port or DNS. You fill that out, and what it does is it monitors for uptime, also monitors for jitter and packet loss. Any of that stuff that comes up, you can monitor. So think of it as you wanted to know if your domain controller ever goes down, or if they ever lose internet in the middle of the night. You can set this guy up and he will do a monitor for you. One thing I would probably like to do is most likely maybe, the timeline's up here. That's kind of cool. So if you look real close here, we have timelines right there. So we have last 7 days, 1 hour. That's pretty neat. That's something new that we just added. Findings. So if we're doing a security scan, like you saw with the vulnerability scan, the security scan, it'll show any sort of findings that it anything that it finds right here. We can also do a new scan, and we select the device. We select what kind of scan we want to do. Is this a security audit? Is this a vulnerability scan? And this is using Nmap, so you'll see a lot of the same terminology here. You select your targets. You can select your ports. You can select the intensity. All stuff that's very customizable. So say we wanted to do a just a basic security scan on our domain controller. Let's just do that. We'll start to scan. And so here in a little bit, it will populate this. Once it's done running that scan, it'll populate that with extra information from our server. Again, take this with a grain of salt. This is all pulling literally from Nmap. We wanted to stick with a lot of open source tools. So if it didn't find anything new, it won't, obviously it's not going to tell us anything. We can always go back to tasks and see if it's had any issues. This one ran a security audit and it found some RDP ports open. You can look at the JSON too, but that should also align with right here, which I think we had already done a scan. So you can click on these guys and you can acknowledge or add notes. And if you look, you can click on the mark acknowledge right there. So it'll attempt to give you a CVSS score, everything else as well. We'll probably continue to improve on this. If we go to our security hub, these are different security scans that we can run. Kind of aligns with a lot of the things we're doing here, network tools, wireless survey. There's a whole bunch of stuff to this. I definitely encourage you to check it out. Network discovery was asked by one of the partners that I work with at my full-time job. They said, hey, I want to be able to scan a network and know what devices are up at all times. So we kind of added this. I'm going to select this interface for my device. I'm going to hit start monitoring. And what it's going to do is it's going to do a scan of my network and show all the things that I have on my network. And you can move this thing around. You can zoom in. You can click on it. Pretty much all this stuff should show a little bit of detail. And one thing that's really cool is you can mark them as known or unknown. So if you've identified these devices are trusted and you're familiar with them, then anything new that comes up will show as untrusted, like unknown device, right? New devices right there. You can also generate reports on this, which is kind of nifty. You can delete these devices and you can continuously run this scan every 1 minute. I'm going to stop it for now, but you can change this as well. So it'll basically do an ARP scan of the network for you. Next up, we have our device history. So anything that it does scan, it's going to put into this little device history. And it's designed to record all the things that it's found and not get rid of them, even if you're not doing an active scan. So say we wanted to look at a particular device, right? So maybe I want to really drill into this router that I'm using. Well, we have some options here as well. If we look closely, we can go over here and see this is the IP address. I can check this as known or unknown as well. And I can also do a scan here. And so the scan will allow you to do a scan of several different ports. You can specify them, or you can just do the 1 to 1000. And when it's done, it's going to give us the scan right here. So let's take a look at this. It shouldn't take very long at all. So now we have 4 ports open. We can see what those ports are. We got 22, 53, HTTP, and 443. We can also drill into this device too. If you click on this little device details, and this will show you all of the information that we found about the device so far. So we can give it a name. We can just say, hey, this is the router. We can give it some notes here. Running pfSense. And so that will record that for us. And then we have additional scans that we can do on this. We can do a vulnerability scan. We can do an nmap scan, all this other stuff that we can really drill into. And every scan that you do will show up here under the scan history. So you can always come back to this device, pull up information about it. Let's do this. Let's target that domain controller. I want to show you something stupid cool. All right, so .20. And what I want to do here is I want to do a Windows probe. And so I'm going to specify the username and the password. And I'm going to run Windows probe. I've already run one before in the past, but we're going to make one that's a newer one. All right, so when that's done, if we click here, we're getting a bunch of JSON. And I might change this a little bit so you're not getting so much JSON. But if you wanted to see the full-blown report, what we could do is we could come over here under reports, and we could click on this Windows probe here, and we click on that little thing, and it drops down and shows us this awesome little report that we just, a report of all the scan that we just did. We're picking up the host name, operating system, build, uptime, RAM, usage, any sort of findings that it came across, anything like the domain is, maybe it doesn't have its firewall up, maybe we're end of life operating system, picking up our adapters, any sort of network adapters, as well as local administrators, and also anything installed software. So this is all done without having any sort of agent whatsoever on the machine itself. Only thing we needed is username and password. One thing that I am rolling into this as well is, if say you're running this on a domain, and you have the credentials for the domain controller, what's stopping you from doing the same exact scan and across the entire network, pulling all the information from the network, including anything that's installed on machines, any sort of configurations from all of the workstations as well that are potentially joined to that domain. So very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I know this is covering a lot, but let's just keep on trucking. I also have my networks tools that I can run. Basically, essentially, a lot of the same things that you saw under the device, you can do through here, except when you click them in here, it will give you a more active report. It'll basically just show you the information that it came up with instead of just dumping them into the reports. It should dump them all also into reports, but this is just a kind of a quicker way for you just to kind of see what's going on. Next up, we have our HTTP monitor. We can kind of do a ping on any sort of websites that are out there. So if we wanted to say HTTPS, let's hit up google.com and we run this check. What it will do is it'll do basically are you alive, and your response time, your SSL information, if it can retrieve it. So it's just kind of a one-time ping out there just to get some information about a website. Wireless server, not going to cover that too much because I don't have any sort of wireless devices connected to this virtual machine, but I definitely encourage you to experiment with that. SNMP, kind of the same thing. You can run a query, you can do a walk, you can check for interfaces, get system information. It'll ask you for the string that you're using and the device that you're trying to hit. So this would be great if you're trying to get some information about maybe like a printer or something. I don't have any printers, so can't really show you anything. All right, AD report is the same thing that we ran before. That is the Active Directory report that we pulled from that server. And again, here's all of the reports that we have done in the past. It's set to hide background scans, but if you wanted to see the background scans as well, you can uncheck that guy, and you'll see that every so often it's doing an ARP scan and getting information about our network if you've turned on the network discovery. So that's essentially what it's doing there, and that's where it's getting its information. You can click on any of these and get the report for that. So there's your network. Here's your ports that were open, and it's just a central location for you to pull any of your reports. Changelog, this is anything that we've changed or that we put into the software since its release. This really should be version 1, but I've done so much with it that it just keeps counting up. So I'm coming out of the gate on version 3, which don't let that confuse you. Customers are your customers. So if you have customer like Acme, and you have site for Acme, we can select that here. So we can just do like main, and we'll just do Acme. And so when you go to load the devices, it'll ask you for the location. What we'll probably do in the future is allow it to be a little bit easier for you to understand. So when you go under devices and you hit new device, you have to select a site, but doesn't really help you know which customer, especially if there's like 3 customers with main. So look for that to change in the near future. Let's see, releases is not really anything that you need to worry about right now. It's basically a way for you to push client software to the machine or to the agent, but I'm not going to really do anything for that now. I mean, I'll probably remove it later on. It doesn't really matter. We have audit log. So any of the things that were done, any sort of tasks that were issued, devices enrolled, will show up in here. So it's just a way for you to track all of your stuff. Holy crap, we've been talking for like 20 some minutes. And I'm going to wrap this up real quick. If we go under users, you do have the option of enrolling additional people. You can also enable MFA. So if you hit MFA, we can go in and start that. It will give us our QR code to scan, as well as the entry here. And you can compare that the numbers that you're seeing are the same. That's going to match up with your authenticator. So do not just copy that in there. It'll probably be a bad thing. Honestly, I might remove that live code preview. That seems kind of silly that we have that in there. But MFA was one of those things where I definitely wanted to add. I want to get it in there before we released it. But again, most of the stuff that's in here was always subject to improvements, especially as people use it and give me feedback. Alerts, we have a couple of different ways that we can set up alerts. We can say, you know, if the device goes offline, whatever, high findings. I added email, but it's kind of meh. You can configure that through the Docker. But I was more interested in webhooks. So we added the webhook URL too. So if you have like a Discord or N8N or something, you can always set the webhook up and it'll send those alerts there and then go pretty much wherever you want it to. Well, that is pretty much about it. The only thing that I wanted to show you is that when you do get in here initially, if you decide that you want to experiment with this software, you will have a default username and password when you sign in. And when you're in the main dashboard with the admin, you'll see a bunch of options here, but this is mostly for you to set up your MSP customers, right? So this was really designed so that multiple MSPs could use this easily without seeing each other's data conflicting with each other. So when you first sign in to this admin, you're not going to be able to set up devices or customers or anything because it's not really meant to support it here at the main level. So what you'll first want to do is you want to come here under MSPs. I have one called ASDF. You'll hit new MSP. We'll call it Bob's MSP. You'll create one, and then it'll ask you for the admin for Bob's MSP, username and password, and that will get you into the system so you can add additional users. You can set up your customers and their sites. So that's just something that just make sure that you are aware of that in case you hop in here and you start trying to add customers and everything. You may run into issues like internal server error, and that's because it's intentional. You're not supposed to be able to set up this. This is like the top level. You have like your admin here, like and then you have your MSPs and your customers and locations. So just something to keep in mind. So all right, so the next step is for me to show you how to configure this. We're going to be using Docker. We're also going to be using our Portainer and Nginx proxy manager. And so the installation is not too bad, but there are a bunch of steps that you have to make sure that you complete. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. So let's go ahead and jump into the installation. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you over there in just a second. Okay, are you guys ready to start the installation? I know that I am, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So we're going to start off where we usually start off, and that is at the GitHub. So this is my GitHub address right here at the top. You can see that. Lovely. It'll also be down in the description below. But we have all the files that we need to start going. This is missing some screenshots. I'll add them later, I promise. I know people love screenshots, including myself. But if we scroll all the way down past all the fun stuff, we will get our quick start guide, and that is what we are going to be using. So since there is no image out there, we're going to have to use our terminal. Can't use Portainer for everything. So let's drag over our terminal window, and we are already connected into our Linux machine. This is going to be our server. And let's do this. Let's just kind of run these commands and see what happens. So we're going to first clone this repository. So I'm going to paste this in there. Nope, not twice, just once. And so it's going to download all the files, and it's going to put them into a folder called TekNaBox. So once that's done, let's go ahead and go into our TekNaBox. And we look, we have a couple of files and folders already set up. We have our agent. It's going to house our agent files. So when we need to deploy them with that command line, that's the folder it's going to be looking for. Make sure you don't delete that by accident. We have our platform folder, and that is where we're going to be deploying our Docker from. So let's head on over and deploy our Docker. All right, so this also goes on the assumption that you have already set up Docker, that you have already set up Portainer and Nginx Proxy Manager. If that is not the case, please look for the video that's going to be up in the corner and important part of your screen here that will talk to you and walk you through setting up all those prerequisites. All of my videos can do that just because I use Portainer and Nginx Proxy Manager on everything. So rather than tell you how to do it every single time, just gonna have you watch that video. All right, so if we look in this folder, we have the server and the UI. We have our Docker Compose file. According to our instructions, we're already in our platform. Let's go ahead and copy our sample. So I'm going to copy .env.example to the .env file. Let's go ahead and edit our .env file. So there's a couple of things that we do need to change. I'm going to use Nano. Use whatever text file editor you're comfortable with, Vim or whatever. Now let's just go down the list here. So we have our Bootstrap email address and password. This is going to be our default credentials when we first sign in. Feel free to change them if you would like. Next up, we have our 32 character password that we need to change, our secret key. So let's go ahead and let's delete that. And I just generated one with my password manager. I'm going to paste that. And I'm going to do the same thing for my device token secret key. Paste that, and I'm going to change it by one character. It doesn't really matter. This is just for testing. Next up, we have our API base URL. So this is going to be the URL that we're going to be using for our API. There's going to be two URLs that you're going to set up. You're going to have your API, and then you're going to have your portal. So we are going to set up tekken-api.synhow.com. Don't worry, I will walk you through the DNS setups here in a little bit. And next we're going to do again tekken.api.synhow.com. Perfect. And now we're going to set up our portal. So this could be, you know, whatever you want it to be, honestly. It could be just synhow.com. Or it could be, what we're going to do is we're going to just make it tekken.synhow.com. It's going to be the URL that we're going to be using to access the portal. the API is going to be the URL that the agent is going to use to talk to the API and get all the information in there. So I wanted to set those apart. Database password, we want to make sure that this is something strong and not just that. And same thing for my Redis password. You don't want to make it that. Make it something complex. And the rest of this stuff is honestly things that you can probably really just kind of ignore. This is just agent specific information on how often or how frequent it checks in, all customizable. We do have the very last thing at the bottom is the email configuration. So if you did want to set up email alerting, so if this, like an agent goes down or something doesn't respond that you want to send out an email, this is where you can configure your SMTP server. We are not going to, but you could. I prefer webhooks. All right, so I'm going to go off camera for the rest of this video, at least for a little while, so that I can cover a lot of things that are going on so that you're not distracted by my prettiness. So let's go ahead and take a look at our Docker Compose file real quick. So once we're in here, the Docker Compose is pretty straightforward. I've tried not to make it too complicated, but I do want to cover everything that it's doing. First off, we're going to be deploying a Postgres 16 server. Perfectly normal. We'll be pulling our username, or password rather, from the .env. You are welcome to change any of these other things. Just remember that if you do, there may be multiple places that you want to change them. It's establishing a volume called PG data. That's where our database is going to be storing all of its information. And going forward, it's joining its own internal network, which is fine. We want it to be on its own private network as far as the network that all of the stack items are going to live on. And we have next up our Redis. This is going to be doing caching, which is great. Makes our site really pop, makes it super fast. And that's all pretty straightforward. Those two containers are really boilerplate. They're kind of the same no matter what you're doing. Next up, this is the one that some of the ones that we have made is the API. So it's going to be first building. It's going to be establishing a restart policy of unless stopped, which means server reboots, your stacks can come up automatically. Unless you stopped it before, then it's going to wait for you to power it up. This does depend on the database and the Redis server or container being in a healthy state, which that's fine. And it's pulling a lot of its environment variables from that .env. So whenever you see that $ squiggly line, that is something that it's pulling from our .env. So it's establishing a connection to the database. It's establishing a connection to the Redis server. It's using our secret key. It's establishing where we're going to, pretty much what log level we're going for, what environment, what is our default username and password, what's our artifact bucket, all the fun stuff. And when you come down here to volumes, this may be the only thing that might kind of throw you a little bit. Remember I was talking about your agent folder? So what it's doing is it's looking for the // means going to the previous folder, and it's looking under the agent folder. And that's where it's going to be pulling the agent that it deploys to your Linux clients. That's going to be the folder it's going to be looking for to hand out those files. That way you don't have to download them on every single client. You just run that one enrollment command. It takes care of the rest for you. Again, joining the same network. Ports, local host only, that's fine. Not really necessary for our purposes, but in case you wanted to access it internally without going through the URL, you could do that. So it doesn't hurt anything to leave that as it is. Our worker is going to be handling and orchestrating a lot of the tasks that are happening between our agent and the UI, which means it needs essentially a lot of the same kind of connections that our database is establishing. So it's going to be handling all that for us. It's awesome, isn't it? Nice little guy. Our UI is going to essentially just really need access to know what your what URL wants to use and what your API is. And so our worker is going to be taking care of a lot of the other stuff for us. It doesn't need a lot of database connections. Next up, we have our ports, which we are going to comment out because we're going to be using Nginx Proxy Manager. If we did not comment them out, then that means port 3000 would be listening on the web and it would be unencrypted, which is not really what we want. We want to run this through Nginx Proxy Manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a pound sign in front of ports and in front of those numbers right there. Lastly, we have our networks being established as well as our volumes being created. Easy peasy. I'm going to go ahead and save this guy. I'm going to hit Control X, save the buffer. Yes. Enter. All right, now we are ready to deploy. All right, so in order to deploy, only thing we have to do is run this docker compose up -d. The -d stands for detached. Docker compose up -d. Go. So as this is creating and downloading and building everything, yours is going to take a little bit of time, especially if it's the first time you run it. But once it's all done, we should have a bunch of green signs. While this is doing its thing, let's hop on over to our DNS settings. So let's go ahead and configure those guys. So for this, I'm going to be using Namecheap, but you can use whatever DNS server you want to. We're just going to be creating some A records. So I want to take the IP address of the external IP address of my server that I've already set up, and I'm going to go ahead and hit add new record. I'm going to hit A record, and I'm going to be specifying my first one is going to be my API. So TekN-API. Paste in my IP address. Remember, we're creating A records. It's going to create a domain of whatever this is in front of whatever this is. So TekN-API.synhaw.com. We're going to create another A record, and this is going to be for our portal. We're going to be calling this just TekN. This just needs to match whatever you put in your env file. All right, so we're going to hit Save Changes. And there we go. Let's check back on our server. It looks like everything is created and it's healthy and it's going great. Awesome. Good to know. All right, so let's hop over to our portainer. So for portainer, I want to go to containers and I want to find my Nginx Proxy Manager. So it's my Nginx right here. As you can see, got a couple of containers going on. And I want to go ahead and join the into the TekNaBox network. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can drop this down and I should see my, all right, so here it is. It's our platform _internal. Remember, it got that platform because that was the subfolder. If you wanted to change this to something else, you probably could, but we're just going to call it this. Not a big deal as long as we know what it is. We're going to hit join. And there we go. So we have joined. We should have an IP address. So like, looks like we got .7, which means we should have our IP address ready to go. All right, now that we've joined, let's go ahead and configure our Nginx Proxy Manager. So we're going to need a little bit of pieces of information. I'm going to go to my stack and I'm going to go to my platform right here. Here's all my TekNaBox containers. And could we have named it something different? Probably. So we might look at that later on. Maybe add the container name. That way it would help us instead of calling platform, because it, like I said, it got the platform from the folder name. So maybe you could just rename the folder name. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our Nginx Proxy Manager. Let's go to proxy hosts. And under here, we need to create a couple of hosts. So the first one we need to create is our API. All right, so we'll do our TekN-API.synhaw.com. And we want to forward this to a specific port. Do you remember what that port was? It's okay if you don't. Let's hop back over to this site here and let's look at our Docker Compose. So the port that we want to forward traffic to for our API will be that second number right here. So if we look really closely, this would have been the port that we listened to on our network. This is the port that the container is listening for traffic. So we want to make sure we send it to that second one, which is the 8000. So we got 8000. I need a name, which will be under here. If we look closely, we can see platform-API-1. And we're going to paste that there. We're going to make sure we don't have any white spaces in front. We don't. We're good. All right, so we need to enable WebSocket support. We're going to block common exploits. I'm going to hit save. Now, before we go on too far, I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is encrypted. So I'm going to click these little 3 dots and hit edit. I'm going to go to SSL. I'm going to drop this guy down and request a new one. I'm going to force SSL and hit save. And hopefully if we did everything right in the same order, then we should get this pop away here in just a second when it gets its SSL cert. Cool. Success. All right, let's do our portal now. So our portal, we're going to do backend.synhow.com. We need to know where to send this traffic. So we're going to send it to our UI. Then we're going to paste that in here. Make sure we don't have any spaces. We're good, we don't. And again, we need a port number. So if we head back to our GitHub, scroll down to our UI, and it looks like it's expecting traffic on port 80. All right, easy enough. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 80. All right, so I'm going to enable WebSocket support just in case it needs it. Block common exploits and hit save. All right, and now we are going to add SSL to that one too. Edit, SSL, request, force, save. Okay, so now we have everything all set up. I think we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and click on our TekN. And here we go. We have our sign-in prompt. All right, so let's see if we can use our default credentials, which was the admin at your domain, and then change me 123. And if we did everything right, we should be good to go. Yep, we are signed in. Haha, light mode. And let's go ahead and set up our first MSP. So we're just going to call this Acme. And then we'll set up our default credentials for that, or not default, but our admin credentials. Yep, we're good to go. Acme's all set up. Cool. And always MFA, definitely. All right, so that pretty much does it. All right, guys, well, that pretty much sums it up. So what'd you think? Is this something that you think would be useful, something you might use, or because it is vibe coded that you would be very hesitant to touch? I am always happy to hear your opinions. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You guys take care.